Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about dyno results on both my 2007 SV650 and my new to me 2021 Aprilia RS660. First and foremost, I've got to thank Rob Schwartz, owner of Rob's Dyno Service, Gardner, Massachusetts. Without his sponsorship, there is just absolutely no way I could have put this RS660 together for this season racing. He has been a huge supporter of mine, a huge sponsor, and let's face it, he's sponsoring a senior citizen racer. I'm not there yet. I got till October, but you know, he has a lot of faith in me, and between the parts support, the tuning support, the setup support, the moral support, that, and he's just a great friend. And I just can't thank him enough. So if you need your bike tuned, he's the only guy to go to anyway. He's been doing it for numerous years. He's tuned bikes for some of the top riders in the NEMA series. By all means, you know, if you just go out and buy a pipe, slap it on your bike and expect it to run right, nope. You're going to get the best gains by getting a true dyno tune on your bike. So make sure you support him. 45 Fredette Street, Gardner, Mass. And please, by all means, support him. So back to what's going on. So they rebuilt the whole top end on my SV650. I had some valve issues the end of last year. With the valves being too tight, the valves had stretched quite a bit. Rob has got a new tech this year. Actually, he started last year. Waylon Dempsey, excellent motor builder. He previously he had worked at a dealership, worked for Orient Express, did a lot of machine work for them as well. So I had no problem letting him do my top end. I don't have the tools to do it anymore, so there you go. And I'm very happy with the results. So new JE pistons, new valves. I mean, he set the squish. He got the correct gaskets, base gasket, head gasket, degreed in the cams, and the motor runs super strong. So I'm really happy with the new top end, and I'm going to show you that on the dyno. We'll talk a little bit about the. Yeah, you'll see the bike on the dyno. It sounds really strong. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the dyno graph. I'll bring that up. And then we're going to put the RS660 on there and run a dyno check on that for a baseline with the Aprilia Race ECU. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. And you get to see a little bit of dyno tuning on a couple of lightweight race bikes. So this is my SV650 getting the final touches on the engine rebuild. The whole top end's been done. Pistons, rings, valves, cams have been degreed in. It already had the bottom end out with Carrillo H-rods. This should be a monster for this season. And it's actually going to be up for sale at some point. But it'll be getting the full dyno tune. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the dyno results for the 2007 Suzuki SV650 race bike. So we've got two lines on the charts here. One of them was from 2022 back in June when I first picked the bike up and we did a baseline, and he made some adjustments to it. And just a couple of things to note. Here on the tail, oh, I'm sorry, that's an arrow. Let's put a, let's draw a little circle here. Let's do a little freehand. So right here, this leaning out, Rob has tried to get that out of the system even back then, and he couldn't get it out at the very top. However, not really that big of a deal. Now, we gained about 4 horsepower from the motor last year to what it is now with the new top end. And the new top end, it's running stock bore JE pistons. And Waylon Dempsey, Rob's lead technician, been in the motorcycle industry over 20 years. He builds a really great motor. And he degreed in the cams. It does have the Gen 1 intake cams on the exhaust side. It's got the single plug heads. He got custom thickness head gaskets, base gaskets, and all that. Set the squish. Set the cam timing. And like I said, we gained about 4 horsepower and 3 or 4 pounds of torque as well. And that's, the torque peak is right at about 7,500, which it was before. And we actually hold that out quite a bit farther. And the torque, the bike really starts to pull right around 4,000 RPM. As you can see, that's pretty much 80% or better of the actual torque that we're getting. And the peak torque is coming in right around 7,500. So it's going to pull its hardest from 4,000 up to 7,500. And then you can see where it starts to taper off gradually as we increase in horsepower. Now, horsepower, we gained about 4. It's right at 80 horsepower. We got a little bit of a dip right here, and that's due to fueling. And when Rob has time, he's going to work on that and see if he can't figure out why he can't get rid of that. I mean, he was just dumping fuel in on the end, and it just wasn't dropping that AFR and bringing that line nice and smooth. He spent a lot of time on the first one, and due to time constraints, I mean, he tuned this. It's going to be great. I'm going to be down in Roebling Road in February racing this in the Sound of Thunder 3 class. So there's your torque graph right here. And why this is important is torque is what makes the bike go. All right, that's how it goes. Now, one of the other graphs that he showed me is we dropped 2 seconds. Now, the graph he showed me was time to speed. And we should have printed that graph out because it was pretty impressive. We had a drop of 2 seconds to get to the same speed as we had with the old engine before the new top end. So the bike's going to get there a couple of seconds quicker than it used to, that's a great improvement. And there's a lot of other things, I mean, that we could have graphed. But we just did the basics on this. And the motor's now broke in. It's ready to go. It sounded great on the dyno, as you could hear. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the graph. So we're getting up to peak right there at the rev limiter. So most likely I'm going to be using between 4,000 and say 9,500 to 10,000. And as you can see, there's not a lot of gain, a couple of horsepower, but the torque is starting to drop off pretty good. Above 9,500, it starts going down. So we'll say, you know, somewhere right in here. This is going to be the best pull that the bike's going to have. So anywhere between 4,000, say 90, 750, right in there. That's where I'm going to want to shift. That's where I'm going to want to keep the bike in that torque curve for the best torque to get the best drive. But I wanted to explain this as well. And next we're going to take a look at the RS660, which we couldn't do a full run on, but I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so we just got done tuning the SV650 and it is ready to hit the track. And now we're going to do a baseline on the Aprilia RS660 here at Rob's Dyno service. At present, he's working on figuring out what he needs to be able to adjust the maps on this. Right now it's set on engine management map number 1 with the Aprilia Racing ECU from AF1. And we'll see what kind of horsepower it makes. Definitely going to need the earplugs with that Hindle. Okay, so we ran it on the dyno. However, for some reason the rev limiter is kicking in right at 9,000. Haven't been able to figure out what's keeping it from going above. And it made 82.5 horsepower at 8903 RPM. But there's still plenty left on the table. I'll let Rob explain what he's seeing on the dyno.
So we get the ECU updated and we can bring it to probably 10 grand in RPMs. He'll have a little bit more in torque, a lot more in horsepower, and this thing will be ready to rock. So I got to make a few phone calls about this ECU and figure out what software I need to do it, and Craig's going to be ready for racing.
All right, guys. Okay, here's the dyno graph on the RS660. We ran into a problem. We couldn't rev it past 9,000 RPMs, and neither one of us really had any idea what was going on with that. And when I got home, I looked into it and found out that it has to do with the clutch safety switch. Now, when I was changing out the handlebars, I must have damaged the switch because it had popped out and all the parts had fallen out of it. So Aprilia in its ECUs, if it's not receiving that that signal from the clutch safety switch, it hits a rev limiter at 9,000 RPMs, or right around 9,000 RPMs. So it got to 9,000, it thought the clutch was pulled in, and it shut down. So we were unable to take it up to the 11.5, which is the actual rev limiter on an RS660. So this is the graph that we have up to 9,000 RPMs. And what you can see here is single click. Here we go. So what you can see here is it's still on the climb. It's still going up. And I expect it's probably going to get up around 90 or better on the maximum horsepower. And what you can see also is that the torque is just starting to drop off. We're right at 50 pounds of torque. But it's just starting to gradually run off. Now, we can go all the way up beyond what's shown here on the graph. Right now, it only goes to 11. So 11.5 is actually the red line on the RS660. So Rob reached out to one of his fellow tuners, someone who's probably tuned more RS660s here in the U.S. than anyone else. And I forget what his name is. But Rob reached out to him, and he called me back, and he says, yeah, he talked to him about the Aprilia Race ECU. And he said, you know, the Race ECU has got a really decent tune in it, with the exception of one area on the air fuel between 4,500 and 5,000, like right in here, where it gets really kind of fat. So, you know, once Rob gets what he needs to be able to tune this ECU, we can take that little fat portion out of it. And it looks like it started getting fat again up around 9,000. Because you want to stay right around that 13.0 mark. But like I said, Rob was unable to really do anything with it. We couldn't really get a full hard pull on it because of the faulty clutch switch, which, you know, shame on me. I had forgotten that the switch had fallen apart. I tucked it in the fairing and didn't think anything else of it. I thought that had to do with maybe putting it in gear, but we were able to put it in gear with the clutch pulled in and everything was working. But however, Aprilia's got that set at 9,000 RPM with the clutch pulled in. You can't rev beyond that. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to limit me on my starts. Usually, I like to have the RPMs way up there on the start, slip the clutch, and get a good start. 9,000 RPMs, basically, I could have the throttle pinned, and until that clutch is fully out, it's not going to rev beyond 9 grand. And I'm going to have to consider that. They do make a clutch bypass for this, or I could just jump with the wires and bypass the clutch switch. I don't know if I'm going to want to have it revving at 10 grand or 10.5 on my start and slipping the clutch out. I haven't even ridden the bike on the track yet, but I'll figure it out once we get down to Roebling Road. But this was really impressive. I think this bike's going to be a good upgrade for me from my SV650. And again, I'm going to be racing the SV650 in the Sound of Thunder 3 class at Roebling Road with Arma, only because they've got a cap on the CC limit for Sound of Thunder 3 class, and it's set at 650. So you have to run a stock bore SV650 to be able to race in SOT3. So I'll be racing 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, SOT3 with the SV650, and I'll be running SOT2 with the RS660. So it should be a really great race weekend. I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm going to just go ahead and do my sign off. Hey, if you like the content on the channel, please, please, please subscribe. I need to get my subscribers up. Hit the bell for notifications. Also, a thumbs up helps the algorithm greatly. And if you're out there riding on twos, make sure you keep that shiny side up, rubber side down, and as always, have yourself a great day.